Every day, every hour, this very minute perhaps, dark forces attempt to penetrate this castle.
On July 15th, every challenge.
This is beyond anything I imagined.
Every sacrifice.
You ask too much.
And every moment.
Close your eyes.
Comes down to this.
Going back!
Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Rated PG. In theaters and IMAX July 15th.
Hello and welcome to episode 44 of We'll Review It Our Shelves, the podcast where we review the movies on our shelves. Every 2 weeks we'll take a randomly selected movie from our collection and we'll review it ourselves. I'm Brian Morgan. Joining me as always is...
Dan Bergman.
And as an extra special guest, I called in the pro from Dover, my Harry Potter specialist, Uber fan. Is that an accurate description?
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I would say that.
Okay. My daughter, Mackenna. She was on the show before. I think the last episode you were on was the Scooby-Doo episode, which has been some time. How have you been?
I've been good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo, so long ago. You've grown up so fast.
She'll be driving soon. And going to college and making life-altering decisions or something. I don't know. They grow up too fast. She's still a wee.
Yeah, I'm not growing anymore.
You're not growing anymore? Okay.
No, I'm done.
Me too. I refuse to grow up anymore.
Yes. So, we have not received any listener feedback on our previous episodes, which leads me to my next statement. Listeners, we'd love to hear from you and hear what you think about the episodes that we have completed. Like to know what y'all think about Bambi. And actually, one of the things that I meant to ask during the Bambi episode, so I'm just going to ask it now, is when did Bambi become a name that was associated with sorority girl type ladies?
I'm going to just sport a guess and say the 80s, when the blonde bimbo thing was a thing. Yeah, can I say that on this channel?
I guess you can. You just did.
Okay.
I mean...
Okay.
There's editing.
Okay.
But, yeah, it occurred to me that you hear that name used, like, oh, I'll just talk to Bambi. Like, oh, how did that happen? How did a young deer that became a buck in the woods become synonymous with sorority girl-esque type stereotypes?
You know, that's funny, because it's like, even in our culture, pardon me in ahead of time if this comes out wrong, it sounds better in my head than it's probably going to come out of my mouth, but you don't even see the most flamboyant of drag queens and gay men called Bambi. They don't use that name, ever.
No, and Bambi's a boy's name.
It was.
Yeah, well, true. Oh well, it is much like the character of Voldemort in this movie, in the sense that J.K. Rowling
is probably the only one that pronounces it the way it was supposed to be pronounced.
Yes, exactly. With the silent T, because it's French, and we'll get to the trivia about what it means later that Mackenna educated me on. But
was Voldemort?
Mm-hmm. That's the way it was originally meant to be pronounced, but in much the same way as, if you're familiar with the Shannara books, Shannara? Yeah, the Sword of Shannara, Elfstones of Shannara.
I'm not familiar.
Now, it's a fantasy series, but the name of the land was originally intended to be pronounced as Shannara, and someone told the author, in much the same way that someone has now told J.K. Rowling, like, yeah, you know what? It's Voldemort now. Get over it. That's the way it's pronounced. You're just going to have to deal with it. It reminds me of the Toy Story thing. You uncultured swine.
Yeah, no, people have pointed it out to J.K. Rowling on Twitter, and she goes, yeah, no, I realize this, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only person that actually pronounces it that way. So it's fine.
Good for her.
I'm probably jumping ahead and bringing this up, but, it's like I just, for some reason, I just popped this image in my head where if Tony Stark ever met Voldemort and they said, it's Voldemort, and I'm like, okay, whatever, Walmart,
Fair enough. Like, and what's with the nose thing?
Yeah, Squidward.
Yes, exactly.
It's a stylistic choice.
Yes. And so, since we have no listener feedback, we will jump immediately to how this movie got on our shelf. And I'm going to let Mackenna answer that question for us.
Okay.
We have the entire Harry Potter series because my mom, my sister, the whole family are huge Harry Potter fans. So.
Some of us more so than others.
So you're pretty much a completionist, though. It's like you just can't not have the whole collection.
In the sense that it's a good collection. Not in the sense that we absolutely, positively have to have every single one. This is a good series of movies and worth owning. The full Blu-ray collection, special edition with DVD backups and video copies of.
It's also on the hard drive.
It's also on the hard drive.
Nice.
Again, because we had the video backup, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, this is one of those where I don't presently have it on my shelf, but I did at one time.
Okay, you did it one time. I'm a little shocked that you don't own it. I mean, being the completionist that you are, as you've mentioned a number of times on the podcast, and this seems like a movie that would be in your swim lane.
It is. It's on the lower tier. I mean, obviously it doesn't occupy the same tier as, the Star Wars and Blade Runner franchises, so to say. But, I did have the collection at one point, but I ran into a couple of problems along the way, which someone with my level of OCD runs into from time to time, is that they changed the format of the packaging at one point. And, well, budget doesn't always allow me to get it all at once.
Fair enough.
So, it's like, okay, there was that little thorn in my side where they were all different and everything, but then it's like Blu-ray came out and it's just like, oh, maybe I want that. So I'll go ahead and sell these and I'll get the Blu-ray eventually, and I haven't done it yet. And then, of course, they came out with all these other, like, full complete edition, these special box sets and everything. So it's like, maybe I'll wait for one of those to go down in price.
Okay.
So it just hasn't happened yet.
All right, so how did you end up watching this?
Once again, PlayStation saved the day because Amazon, for some strange reason, did not have it available to rent on their streaming service. And like I said, I didn't feel like spending money on a copy that's not going to be kept. So, lucky for me, PlayStation Network had it for rent. Yay!
Yay, PlayStation Network. I don't think the Xbox has anything like that.
No.
You can buy movies.
Yeah.
You can
But
rent
you can't
movies. But I don't think you can just stream them as a extra, if you will.
Wait, you can't stream movies on Xbox?
No, you can.
They're-
But you have to buy them or rent them. I don't think that you can just go, like Netflix, find a movie and stream it.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. I rented it through
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I missed the part where you said you rented it. I thought it was, like a Netflix sort of thing where it's like I pay for the PlayStation service. That was a movie that they had, and that's how I watched it.
Oh, no. It's like that particular service, yeah, you have to rent it. So, $3.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny that you mention the Blu-ray and the format change because we have the first few Harry Potter movies, first 5.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I sit corrected. On DVD, and then the remaining 3 of the 7 stories on Blu-ray.
7 stories, 8 movies.
Right. So
Gotta stretch out that last
this
one.
is the first of the Blu-rays that we have, which actually, like I said, came with the digital copy and the DVD version as well. So not that we really use the DVD version, but we have it.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think that I want to go back and get these movies, the first 5 in Blu-ray, but it was one of those things where I was looking at our collection and thought, this is the first one we have in Blu-ray. I didn't realize that the format wars had taken place right around that time, or that we just didn't make the purchase in Blu-ray of the previous one because maybe it was too expensive. I don't know. Same budgeting considerations that you have. But now that we've discovered how this movie did or did not get on your shelf, or was on your shelf and got removed. So, going back to that, you said you had it, and now you don't. Why not just keep it until you get the new version?
That's a complicated story. You know, it's like...
I've got time, I mean...
Okay, when I mean complicated, it's pretty sad. You know, it's just like...
Oh, okay.
Those rough times in your life when you kind of need money and you just sell stuff and say, I'll buy it later, a better one later. And, you know, later comes and goes. And
you still haven't replaced it.
Still haven't replaced it. Life goes on.
Absolutely. And, you know, as much fun as we have talking about movies and watching movies, I mean, there is a point where you do have to realize that, you know, movies are not everything in the universe. They're fun, they're escapism, and they are enchanting, like this movie. Again, spoiling my overall thoughts on this movie, but I really enjoy this movie. I think it is one of the best in the franchise. Although Daniel Radcliffe thinks that it's one of his weakest performances.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was reading some of the trivia, and to be honest, I did minimal research in preparation for this episode, because aside from discussing some of the differences in the movie versus the book, and maybe a few little trivial pieces of production information, I think that we could fill an entire episode and more just talking about this movie and some of the magical implications and asking questions about the Harry Potter universe and the characters and what J.K. Rowling built. I mean, there's so much to talk about. So, like I said, I didn't do a whole lot of research.
Yeah, I was going to say, too, it's like one thing I know about this movie, and I've done it watching a few making-of documentaries and, what's the word, exposés, talking to J.K. Rowling. I mean, she created such a deep and rich universe in the Harry Potter world that there's just so much reference, so much background to talk about and everything. And I'm like, oh, God, is this going to be another one of those we're going to try to talk about references and little details about fan theories and everything? And I was like, oh, I hope we don't go down that road. You know, because
I really didn't explore any fan theories. I mean, there's enough shipping and all of the other crazy fan stories and that sort of thing that go on with this series that I think that there are entire podcasts dedicated to that sort of thing. So
yeah, and we're not that podcast.
Exactly.
You know? I mean,
there's
it's fun.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong. It's fun to mention them from time to time when the conversation dictates. But yeah, like I said, just there is one theory that I'd like to discuss later on. That I found very interesting, and I just recently heard about it, and I haven't delved in it too much, but it's an interesting theory to look at. But we'll get to that.
Okay.
So,
what are your initial thoughts on this movie, Dan?
Me?
Yes.
Well, like I said, I just before I get to lay the foundation that, I mean, I'm not a hardcore Harry Potter fan. I mean, I like the movies. I like them enough to eventually own them again.
Mackenna is pointing at herself when you said hardcore Harry Potter fan. She's like,
yeah. Yeah. Oh, I know. And that's the thing. I know you're not alone. There are so many out there that are, I mean, have you guys been to Universal Studios yet in Hollywood? The Harry Potter world?
I have not.
Oh my goodness.
Neither have I.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you are a horrible father.
Thanks. Wow.
And I mean that in the most endearing way.
Thanks.
You need to take your kids to Universal Harry Potter Land.
Well, Dan just got sorted into Slytherin. Good job.
No, it is. I mean, as a mediocre Harry Potter fan, I was enthralled. I mean, just the level of detail and nuance that they built into that. I kept thinking to myself, man, if they make Star Wars Land any half as good as this, I'll be very happy. But where was I going with this? Like I said,
you were going to Universal Studios. I know.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
You're
yeah.
questioning my ability as a father. I'd like to thank you for that. But anyway,
No, I didn't question it. I made a proclamation.
you did. There was an exclamation point at the end too.
No, but like I said, it's a deep, rich world and everything, and it's very reflected in the films. I mean, it's not just an old building that they occupy. There's so much detail in the background for you to look at. There's so much innuendo and foreshadowing. Maybe innuendo is not the right word, but just kind of like, oh, why is Dumbledore playing with this ring? It's going to mean something later on. I know it will.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of reminds me of a line from Lord of the Rings. It's like, nothing that Gandalf ever did was needless.
Yeah, absolutely. This movie does a lot of Chekhov's gunning, if you will.
Yeah, and it's just like everything's going to mean something eventually. I think that's why I don't find a whole lot of fan theories, because it's like a lot of the things that they put out there pretty much have a payoff later on.
You're getting a mild disagreement from my youngest child. Mackenna, what do you have to say about that?
Let's hear it.
There are actually quite a few fan theories out there. Some of them are very far-fetched, but some of them have actually been pointed out to J.K. Rowling herself, again over Twitter, and she has said that she herself can support them. They may not be canon, but she can agree with them and see that they would fit.
So, that's one of the things that I do like about J.K. Rowling. Rowling?
Yeah.
What is the correct pronunciation of J.K.? Yes, someone's searching on their phone while we continue to record. One of the fantastic things about J.K. Rowling is she is so active with her fan base. And I think that's a part of what keeps this series and this universe alive. That, and coupled with the fact that they're good books, and again, without going too far into the differences between the movies and the books are so much richer. And sometimes when you're having the conversations about this universe and about this series of movies, a lot of times it seems that some people forget that the books are out there as well. And I think that's where her interaction with the fans keeps the books alive too. And that interest in reading that this series of books stoked is, again, it's outside the scope of this particular movie, but just to the series in general, there are so many young children and young, now teenagers, that read these books, and that is their Dragonlance, that's their Lord of the Rings, that's their Star Wars mythology. They're into actually reading, and I just can't applaud that enough. Even if the books were bad, people were reading, and then they use that as a springboard to jump into other things. So,
well, and it's not just that they're reading it. I mean, they're living it. It's the thing with literature is that you get good literature. You don't just read it. I mean, you actually immerse into it. People were reading the book and closing it after reading the last page like, wow, who can I talk to about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Doing exactly what it is we would do on Uber Nerds. I have to go type something into the Uber Nerds group so that I can talk to people about this and start a conversation. Do you do the same thing with your friends, Mackenna?
I definitely talk about Harry Potter a lot with a lot of my friends. I've got my set group of Harry Potter nerd friends, or Potterheads, if you will.
That's an actual word? That's a term?
Yes.
Yes, that is. Those who are in the Harry Potter fandom, will refer to themselves as Potterheads.
Interesting. I've never heard that.
Really?
Yeah, I learned something new today.
I am pulling your nerd card just a little bit. You are getting some nerd street cred removed.
Oh, sure. Make you an admin now. You think you got all this power.
But getting to this movie, we've kind of talked about how Dan and I felt. Mackenna, how do you feel about this particular movie, not the series as a whole, just this one?
I feel like this movie was one of the best ones that they have. It is my second favorite, personally. My first favorite being Chamber of Secrets. That just holds a special place in my heart.
Point of note, I cannot actually say the title of that movie and book without saying Harry Potter and the Chamber Pot of Secrets. I can't help it. It's funny. Okay, back to Mackenna. I'm sorry.
About to say, if you say so.
I think they did a very good job with showing the conflicts. I emphasize the conflicts. There are multiple. But in the way that it, like, just this piece of the whole story, I feel like it was represented very well in this movie.
From the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I haven't read the books myself, because I've discussed this on a previous podcast or anything. I try to watch the movie first before I read the books, because I'll enjoy the movie better if I don't read the books first. And that's just the nature of the media, because, movies, it's forgivable. There's format, there's pacing, there's level of detail that, books can do that movies cannot. And it's not that necessarily means that the movies are bad, it's just the nature of the beast. That's how it is. So would you say then that the movies were very faithful to the book?
In some ways, yes. There are some very key characters that have been, kind of important characters. They do play a role throughout the books that have been taken out of the movies. And a little bit of details that are in the books that are not in the movies. But other than that, the movies do follow the storyline very well.
I agree with that statement.
Okay.
There are some things that are in the books that are underlying currents that lend weight to character actions later on in the series and in the movies, but they're not something that the movies suffer from not having. So, for example, and this is the thing that, quite honestly, and sort of talking about a different movie a little bit, but Dobby, the house elf, who does not appear in this movie, there is an entire undercurrent or backstory about the
Spew.
about Spew, yeah.
Yeah.
About liberating the elves from their bondage and their slavery.
Which was
basically
a key point in Hermione's characterization.
So they removed that whole cloth from the movies, but I don't think that the movies suffer from it. Because while it's important to Hermione's development, they developed her in different ways throughout the story. And in this movie, one of the things that they develop is her interest in Ron. And this is one of the first times where you see a little bit of teenage drama kind of playing out. I don't think you really got that in the movie before that. And you really don't get a whole lot of it in the Deathly Hallows, the last movie. So this is the one that, you've got the Hermione trying to make Ron jealous, Ron thinking that snogging, which, again, this series of books and this movie really emphasize as a term for kissing. And I did want to take a moment to thank J.K. Rowling for introducing that into the American lexicon as a word that we didn't normally use until you start talking to Potterheads who are like, oh, they're snogging.
Or if you know other English folk.
Yes.
And yes, that too.
The same. I got a buddy, he's an English butler. He'll use that word once in a while. But they also use it in Australia, so I was relatively familiar with that word. So when the first time I heard it, I just knew what it was. It was just no big deal.
But in this movie, that's where you start to see some of that teenage drama, but it plays out very well because it's enhancing the backstory and filling in some of the stuff that keeps it more true to the book.
Would you call this the Captain America Civil War section of the Harry Potter series? The part where you see the drama, some conflict, maybe they're kind of butting heads a little bit, which sort of weakens them, a little till the real enemy shows up, which doesn't quite show up just yet.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonably fair comparison. McKenna's kind of shaking her head. She doesn't really think so, I'm guessing.
Well, you pointed out that the conflicts between them makes their relationship a little weaker until the main villain shows up or stuff, but I feel like this whole thing really opens up them more as how deep their friendship really is.
Which I'll agree, because at the end of it, when Harry says he's going to go off on his own to look for the rest of the Horcruxes, it's like there was that point where it would have been more like Civil War, where they go off on their own and they're separated and everything. But, Hermione being the level-headed and rational one says, nope, we're going to do this together.
To be honest, when you asked the question about this being Civil War-esque in its nature by comparison to the MCU, I honestly would compare this more to The Empire Strikes Back in the sense that at the end of the movie, they didn't win. Dumbledore was dead. The Horcrux that they had gone to search for was not actually a Horcrux. This was the setup movie for the Deathly Hallows, in the same way that The Empire Strikes Back sets up Return of the Jedi. They're mostly trying to figure things out along the way. There's the end of the movie where, Hermione, the Princess Leia-esque character, goes up to the main character, Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, and puts her arm around him in a comforting way and says, no, we're doing this together. That was kind of the feeling that I got from the end of The Empire Strikes Back. It's like, yeah, there's going to be some stuff where some people are going to have to do some things independently, but ultimately we're going to have to band together to accomplish this task. So I would make a story-wise comparison to The Empire Strikes Back, because this movie, while it's the sixth movie, and the sixth book, obviously, but it's kind of that transitional piece that one gets from the middle movie in a trilogy. Because before that, you've got the first 5 movies that are really just setting up Voldemort returning and doing something significant. And then the Half-Blood Prince is the reaction to that. And the Deathly Hallows is, parts 1 and 2 is Return of the Jedi. Now we have to take down the Emperor. We have to take down the big bad. So, I actually would compare this to The Empire Strikes Back. Mackenna, do you agree?
Okay.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that. Makes sense.
Yeah. So, just to rebut on this, I don't mean to sound argumentative or anything. I like I said, I will look at this more as the Civil War aspect of it, because there is still a death in Civil War, and it's not necessarily a physical death, but it's the death of the bond between Stark and Captain America, because after their final fight, there's a little detail, and this is what I like about, movies that don't have to spoon feed you. You really look at this. It's like when Captain America goes for that final blow and takes out his little chest reactor, everything. For that split second, you kind of look and you see in Tony's eyes that he actually truly felt that he was about to be killed, that he had driven Steve Rogers to kill him. And right there is that moment when you realize their friendship was pretty much done in that fight. And so that breakup, and then, of course, when Stark is just laying there, he's beaten and everything, and he's like, you don't deserve that shield and everything, expecting him to walk off with it, and he's just dropped it and says, take it. Right there, you knew that bond is gone. So there's that death, and the good guys lost on that, because Zemo set out for whatever you want to say about his methods, he set out to break up the Avengers, and he won. In that sense, there was a lot of inner conflict within the Avengers. There was a lot of reevaluations of the relationships, much that you saw in the Harry Potter thing, where it's like there's a real evaluation between the relationship between Ron and Hermione, the relationship between Harry and his other 2 friends, because there was all this talk about, I am the chosen one, and, you got to do this, and he's like, I know who I am, well, you got to realize this, and there was a lot of internal argument within that group. So that's where I draw the parallels, and that's where I'm coming from, so.
I disagree to a point about the conflict between Ron, Harry, and Hermione. The comment that you alluded to about, I'm the chosen one, the way I read that when he made that statement, which was, if the one I think you're referring to is the one you're talking about, where they were in the library and...
Romilda Vane.
Yeah. I'm sorry, say her name again?
Romilda Vane.
When he was trying to find someone to take to the holiday party.
Christmas party.
He said, she thinks you're the chosen one. I am the chosen one. That was more of a matter-of-fact, poke. I am the... yeah, I know. It was kind of a... Not necessarily a humble brag. It was the...
Friendly banter.
Yeah, it was friendly banter. It was the, I know I'm the chosen one. Don't necessarily want to be, but I know I am, so...
That's not the scene I was thinking of. There's another scene where it was a little bit more serious tone I forget what it was, but it was after, one of those little situations where Harry got hurt and Hermione was reminding him to be safer with his actions because he is the chosen one. And he's like, I know I'm the chosen one type thing, but I know who I am.
But, and that was the other one that it could, that I was thinking about. But that to me read as the exasperation of, oh God, stop reminding me. I know it. It wasn't like anger. It wasn't a rift. It was just like, I know. So as to the conflict between the friends, that's where I'm drawing the disagreement with your characterization, because at no point were they ever at each other's throat in the same way that they were in the previous movie when Harry was suffering on his own. Like, I have to do this alone. I have to do this alone. Yes, he still has a bit of that in him, as we see at the end of the movie, but their bond was pretty much, in my opinion, unbreakable. Mackenna, do you have anything to add to that, or say, or disagree, or agree, or?
I mean, yeah, no, I agree, because throughout the books and the movies, Hermione and Harry are shown to have this brother-sister relationship. And I guess the little arguments they have, or sort of thing, kind of, the playful banter sort of shows how much they are like siblings. I myself being a sibling.
Yep.
So are you saying that because they have this bond, there is no way, shape, or form that bond can be strained?
No, it can absolutely be strained. In fact, in the Deathly Hallows, the brotherly relationship between Ron and Harry is strained. But
and see, that's what I'm talking about. Is like there is a strain in this one that I didn't see in the other ones. It's actually amplified because of that looming threat of the Dark One coming, and later on, after, it just makes it more. Let me round this out. After Dumbledore dies, that strain it wasn't broken. It didn't reach the snapping point, but it definitely made that tragedy much more potent. They were more sensitive to it. And to me, this is why you get Harry Potter saying, I'm going to go off on my own, or Hermione emphasizing that, no, we have that bond that you are expressing, and that's why it needs to be stronger. That's where it differs between that and Civil War. Yes, I will agree to that. But again, I think this is the point where you feel that the stress of the looming threat really take its toll on the characters.
So for me, I feel like Harry is really trying to push this whole I'm gonna do this on my own thing, because he doesn't want any more of his friends to die because of him being the chosen one and what he has to do to protect the Wizarding World. Mm-hmm. Because his friends have died in the past for him because of this, destiny that has been chosen for him. So he's trying to protect his two closest friends by saying he will go off on his own, because he knows that the man who he trusted his life with has just died because of this. So he's really trying to protect his two best friends, the two most important people in his life.
Absolutely.
yeah, and I see that scene as an affirmation of the friendship. I think that there are better examples of their friendship being strained in other movies. Particularly which one, the fourth one, and the strain that I previously mentioned in the Deathly Hallows, where Ron actually leaves and eventually comes back. But yeah, no, I think I really am going to solidly disagree that I think this movie actually strengthens their bonds of friendship more so than in a lot of the previous movies, with the exception of the first one that establishes it.
Well, so that's not a thing to disagree with. I'm not saying that this is an actual parallel and that's identical. I'm just saying that this is akin to it. You know, I'm just saying that this is a point, you know, just before the climax where, you know, there are strains and everything. I didn't say it was a direct parallel and that there were identical things.
Oh, no. And I'm not taking it as that. I'm just saying I will agree to disagree with you. I disagree with your conclusion.
Well, I didn't make a conclusion. I just said that's what I see it as. Which
I think is a conclusion, right? Isn't?
No.
It's a thought.
It's a thought. It's a.
I disagree with your thought.
Okay, that's fine. You know, because at no point did I say, "Oh, this is absolutely the."
Well, but again, in interpreting the use of the word conclusion, that was the conclusion that you came to, was that there was a strain. So
that was the observation.
Without being too argumentative, observation, conclusion. It's how you choose to define the word. My intent was your observation, your thought. I simply chose the word conclusion. So
yeah. Okay. Well,
without sticking to that too much more. Yeah,
so you're concluding that I'm wrong.
I'm concluding that I disagree with you. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I disagree with you.
Semantics.
I don't know. I'm not J.K. Rowling. I don't know what she meant to do.
Neither am I.
I don't know.
Like I said, I just made an observation.
I'm just saying that, yeah, and my observation is opposite of yours.
Okay.
So you could conclude that I think you're wrong, which I disagree with. Yes, semantically speaking, I think you're wrong, but technically speaking, I simply disagree with you because I don't know what the actual answer is.
Also, we have confirmation on how to pronounce her last name. It is Rolling, like you roll down a hill, I am rolling. So, there you go. It's how to pronounce J.K. Rowling's last name.
There you go.
From left field.
There was a ball still in play and we didn't know it. Well, to change the subject, but to still stay along the same lines of parallels, one of the other parallels that I kind of came up with, relationships that I observed. How do you feel about a parallel between Tom Riddle and Anakin Skywalker?
Mackenna, I can't hear your shoulders shrug.
Again, I can see where you're coming from, but I don't feel like I would stick by that parallel myself.
Okay, well, here's why I came up with that observation. You have two characters who were young and talented. They had abilities, but they were also very different. I wouldn't say they were both outcasts, but they were both kind of alone from very humble beginnings. It took somebody who was quite wise and capable to recognize their potential. They know what they can do, and they felt, we could make them better. We can train them and release that potential and make them the best that they could be, which turned out to be a very bad decision. It spelled disaster for the greater organization that this wise person came from. There were others who suspected them from the start, but those warnings were unheeded. They were trained anyways. Like I said, their development ended up becoming a disaster for the organization. And some of the motivations that they had, if not all of them, they both wanted to cheat death in some sort of way. One was a little bit more self-centered, and the other one was trying to cheat death of somebody else. But trying to go against the certain laws of nature, it seemed that they wanted to violate because of their hubris.
Okay,
if you will. So that's where I draw the parallels. It's to me, it's like looking at the hero archetypes. In this case, the villain archetypes.
I think what you said, the list of things are reasonable comparisons, but the comparison breaks down when you start talking about the redemption arc of Anakin, because at no point is Tom Riddle ever even remotely considered, or rather, at no point has Tom Riddle ever remotely considered redemption. He's just right. It's not a matter of I'm seeking to atone for something that I did earlier, or holy crap, I made a mistake. This is what I was trying to do. Tom Riddle is just seeking to be the most powerful wizard in the world and to rule the magicking world through any means necessary, where Anakin, yes, going back to your comparison, is trying to cheat death and then suffers the penance of becoming Darth Vader for his selfishly motivated actions to preserve the life of someone that he loved. Even though it's something that we all want to do, his lack of acceptance that it's the circle of life, to go back to our Bambi episode and the Lion King comparison, he wants it for a selfish reason because he doesn't want to let go. And so when he becomes Darth Vader and sits at the Emperor's right hand, he goes into that dark place of mourning his motivations, especially when you see the prequels and sort of put all that together. And then, obviously with Return of the Jedi, it's about the good man that was. Tom Riddle was never truly good.
No.
In no interaction in this movie or any other movie do you ever see a shred of decency in Voldemort.
A stereotypical Slytherin through and through.
So again, I think there are aspects of the character development that are parallel, but I think the biggest pieces of it are not parallel to Darth Vader or Anakin Skywalker.
Okay. Agree to disagree.
While we're talking about character development, what did you think of Draco Malfoy's character in this movie?
I never liked his character. I don't know if it's just the way he was portrayed. I think I've said it before. I don't like bullies, and the thing I like even more is people who try to act like bullies. And he never struck me as somebody who came from a place of power. It's almost like they wanted to portray him as more mean than he really was capable of being. I did see that, he had some troubles, with saying, I'm the one chosen for this, and I'm the one who's got to do it, And my whole thing is like, well, then stop being such a, and just do it. It's like almost. Like I said, I've never liked his character.
I'm gonna let Mackenna take this one because she appears to be champing at the bit.
So I am definitely a Draco fan. I will put that out there.
Okay.
And I stand by the fact that Draco is just a misunderstood boy. Because he's brought up in this high-ranking, pure-blood family. That in these pure-blood families like this, especially ones with, rich Slytherin history, they're brought up with this mindset that anyone other than purebloods are, not worthy. They're terrible. They're the scum of the earth. And he's really, he's portrayed this throughout the years, but as the years go on, he starts to question it a little bit as things go on. Especially in the sixth movie, we get to see how much this internal conflict is affecting him. Now he's being recruited into the Death Eaters because his father and his mother, his family, are Death Eaters. So he's following the family line, joining the family cult, if you will. If you would like to call it a cult. I mean, I guess it could be. But
it's a cult of personality.
Yeah, but he's been put up to this task to kill Dumbledore. And he's, throughout the movie, we can see the different ways he's tried to do this. And as it progresses, he starts to realize, is this really something I want to do? But this whole weight of if he doesn't do this, he knows that Voldemort will kill him, also weighs on his decision. And it's a huge thing because you really start to see who he's trying to figure out who he is independently of his family by this pressure and the task that he's been given. So I feel like he's not necessarily a good person, but he's not necessarily a bad person as well either. He kind of lives in that gray area and moves more into that gray area as the movies progress.
Well, he embodies one of the core tenets of Slytherin, which you and I discussed while we were watching the movie, and that tenet is
ambition. Yeah, and Slytherins are usually supposed to be ambitious and cunning. Those are two of the main aspects of Slytherins.
And he is more ambitious than anything, but I think that, and that's one of the things that I love about this movie is showing his journey. I don't like bullies either. I agree with you wholeheartedly. But this movie shows his, like Mackenna said, his development as a rich kid, if you will, in the Muggle world. He is the rich kid from parents that dote on him, who have, and I was thinking that I think an equivalent would be the antebellum South, where he lived on a plantation, and he was the son of the lord of the manor, or even like a fiefdom or something. And he's been groomed all of his life to follow in his father's footsteps. And even his father is weak. He and his father had the same personality characteristics. They're both ambitious. I'm sorry, say that out loud.
They're both Slytherins.
Again, going back to the Slytherin and ambition. But his father makes poor choices because no one around him would help him to make the right choices. And that's something that you see in this movie where Dumbledore speaks to Draco towards the end of the movie in a way that is, I know there's good in you. That's your redemptive arc. That is Luke Skywalker talking to Darth Vader going, I know there's good in you, I can feel it. Albus Dumbledore knows that there is good in Draco Malfoy and that there is conflict about what he's doing. Yes, he's ambitious, but that doesn't mean evil. There's nothing wrong with ambition if pursued properly, which is why Slytherins get such a bad name, because so many of them turn out to be, ambitious and mean, while many of them, could have been somebody else if they just focused on the ambitious part to do good things, to focus on something beyond self.
Well, yeah, just look at Slughorn. He was a Slytherin, and he's just a professor doing what he does.
How do other Slytherins view him?
How do other Slytherins view Slughorn?
Yeah.
I don't really think that's discussed much within the movies or the books.
I would say, if I had to guess, they would view him as weak.
He's not their head of house. Yes, Slytherin house, professors that come back to Hogwarts and teach, their houses still play a key part in their role at the school, but it's really those who are the head of the houses that play the key role in these children who are in the houses, and how they perceive the people who are sorted into this house.
Because they're the ambitious ones that took the head of the house role.
Yeah, so the kids, those in their houses are really going to look up to the head of their house more than other professors who are just those who have been through their house.
See, because my question that comes to this is that, here you have this organization that has a reputation. I think in the very first movie they stated, it's there isn't a wizard that went to Slytherin that didn't turn out bad, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Stereotypes.
Yeah, so my thing is okay, does the house that you go into dictate what you're going to be, or is it the other way around? But my point is you get these heads of houses that come back and teach and everything. Are they not concerned with the reputation that they have? And wouldn't they not work to change that?
I think most of the Slytherin house, again, going to the ambitious and cunning thing, try to promote those aspects, but they don't teach tempering that. They just promote the ambition. They don't direct it in a positive way. It's just no, be ambitious. That's what you want to be. Good job. Way to go. It's like anything. Greed, for all intents and purposes, according to Gordon Gekko, is good. It drives us. It motivates us. And he has a point. There's nothing wrong with greed if you're using it for the greater good. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not promoting that or supporting that as a way of life, but if you cure cancer, there's nothing wrong with feeling like maybe you might want to make a little bit of money out of it or something. I mean, I would hope that you're doing it for the greater good, and the money's just oh yeah, I made some money along the way too. It was kind of cool. But Tony Stark is greedy and we look up to him.
The thing that I am reminded of is a line from the film V for Vendetta, when he went to assassinate the doctor, the one lady that he assassinated. And she basically made the plea that, I was trying to change the world of some sort. I forget the exact line. She stated she meant to do the greater good. What she did was meant for the greater good. And his response to that was, it doesn't matter what you meant to do. What counts is what you did do. And what she did do was leave a trail of bodies. She left a trail of destruction and suffering, And so, if somebody finds a cure for cancer, but he, if he did it in the labs of a concentration camp, that's, I would not deem this person a hero.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And that was kind of my point, is you have to be able to temper it with compassion.
Yeah, and this is why, it's okay, you can say that Malfoy was, troubled and conflicted, and he had some redeeming qualities, but ultimately, I see his actions. His actions was to relentlessly bully Harry and his friends, to, for the lack of a better way to describe it, throw racial slurs at Hermione at her mixed heritage. And, it's in the beginning of the movie when Harry Potter was paralyzed on the floor and he kicked him in the face. I don't. At that point, I'm thinking it's like, yeah, I don't care what you have in you at the moment. You're just not showing it.
But again, you have to realize that this movie takes place over an entire school year.
Yeah.
So he can have a redemptive arc, and that's the thing that, while I 100% agree with what you said earlier, he's a bully. And I don't believe that deserves praise. It doesn't, but it's understandable. And that's the difference. I'm not saying yay for him. I'm merely saying that I understand why he is that way. And this movie gives him the beginnings of a redemptive arc. And going, spoilers for the next movie and, the end of the book, Draco actually becomes a reasonably respected member of the community, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, and this is going into the next book movie, the Deathly Hallows part. Draco actually does end up fighting for Hogwarts in the battle of Hogwarts.
Okay. Yeah. In the book, I'm not sure exactly how it goes because, like I said, I've never read the book. But I mean, if I remember correctly, in the movie, doesn't he just walk away from the fight?
Because his mother calls him over. His mother's really trying to protect her son. That is her main goal. Mm-hmm. And Draco is a mama's boy. Draco is definitely a mama's boy. And Draco's father, Lucius Mouthway, is calling Draco over, but it's really Narcissa. Narcissa's nod and, letting him know it's okay, that she will still protect him from those who judge him based on his decision, is what coerces him to actually go over.
Yeah, and again, though, it's and I say again, you're very compassionate about it and everything, and that's a very applaudable trait. I'm not as forgiving. I mean, I would look at him and say, yeah, you were a jerk the whole time of the 6 out of the 7 years, or maybe most of the 7th year and everything like that. But then when it came down to it, you walked away. Okay, yeah, great. You're not with the bad guys anymore, but you really didn't help. I'd remember that, and I'd just be like, yeah, no, I don't. I don't forget that.
And I wouldn't want you to, but isn't it more commendable to recognize that you're on the wrong side and start that march towards being a better person? And I'm not saying that you forget the actions, but even bullies that I experienced when I was in grade school and high school have grown to become different people, and they're not the same person that they were in their initial formative social interaction years. So to hear you say that, and this is the thing that kind of vexes me a bit, is it sounds as though you could never forgive someone for bullying and recognize their potential to redeem themselves and become a better person.
Well, it's one thing to walk away from your deeds and say, okay, I'm just going to live it's like a criminal who never gets caught and never goes to jail. Says, all right, from now on, I'm just going to, live a good, decent life. I'm going to work, a 9-to-5 job and do nothing and everything, and never pays for his mistakes. And again, I don't know what happened between, Battle of Hogwarts and the end when he grows up and everything, if he did any charity work or actually redeemed himself to the people he wronged. I didn't see that. It wasn't portrayed. It wasn't mentioned. I don't know if it's mentioned in the books, but, it's just almost like he walks away from all this, and then next thing you know, oh, he's living a nice life. How good for him. Yeah, I'm totally about forgiving and everything. I mean, there has been in my life maybe 1 or 2 people who were bullies to me who came up to me and said, hey man, we were terrible to you. We're really sorry. And it's cool. Water under the bridge. I'm okay with that. And I don't think about them in any ill manner. But there are people who haven't. And that's why I still have about a half dozen people on my list.
I do know in the beginning of the movie when we see them on the Hogwarts Express, and we hear Draco say that he would rather throw himself off the astronomy tower than spend another 2 years sitting in charms class. So he's expressing this, he doesn't want to be at Hogwarts. He doesn't want to go to this school at all. But later on, he does end up sending his child to Hogwarts, showing that there has been some sort of change. And I know that it might just be a teenager, oh, I don't want to go to school. School sucks. Mm-hmm. But There are other wizarding schools out there. I do know that. And he could have sent his son, Scorpius, he could have sent him to another school, but he chose Hogwarts.
And I think that's because, again, it's implied that he has a redemptive arc. I don't recall specifically any point in the books or the movie that say, now he's a good person. I don't necessarily know that he is a good person. I just think that he's implied to be a better person.
He's floating that gray line like Snape.
Exactly, and Snape has a redemptive arc as well, and this movie does not demonstrate it. It's not until the next movie that you really see that, and that's actually one of the questions kind of shifting the subject just a little bit. When this movie came up on the random movie generator, it was curious because this is the 6th movie in a series of 8. So we're jumping into the middle of the story, near the end, and we're at the apex of conflict. At the end of this movie, Albus Dumbledore is dead at Severus Snape's hand.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't read the books, and I don't know, and maybe that actually makes you the right person to ask, but when you saw this the first time, if you can recall that without thinking about the movies that came afterwards, what were your thoughts about that? Did you think that Severus Snape had gone back to the dark side, as it were?
I did not, actually, because already at this point, like I said, I love long story arcs, especially when it comes to movies. 8 movies I thought was a hell of an achievement. Of course, this is before it was, totally annihilated by MCU, and there are 20 movies now coming up. But there were so many characters that stated that they trusted Snape and that Snape had been, working for the good guys, so to say, and everything like that. So for him to do that, yeah, it was a bit of a shock, but it's like, no, there's a motive behind it, and it's going to reveal itself. Because at that point, I'd already come to the conclusion that all the foreshadowing and hints and everything that the movie dropped would have a payoff. And I wasn't disappointed. It's like there were revelations and everything. And the thing I love about this series is that I'd say about 99% of everything that you had to figure out was not spoon-fed to us. They just come out and say, oh, I'm this. Oh, this is going to happen. All these little hints were just like, oh, okay, you got to figure it out. And later on revealed in the story arc. And that's... So no, I didn't think that he had gone bad. I thought it made sense, actually, when he said you asked too much. And it's like, oh, Dumbledore made him do it,
Okay. Mackenna, you're nodding your head in agreement?
I can agree with that. There is definitely underlying text or whatever.
Subtext.
Yes. Underlying messages and stuff that are veering towards this idea that this was planned, that Snape isn't the bad person that he is portraying himself as.
He's just misunderstood.
No, he's a... You know who he is to me? And again, it's, we talked about parallels that you guys don't really agree with, and this one's probably you're gonna hate me for this one. Snape in this one, he's Batman.
He's Batman?
He's the guy in disguise, he's... And I say that in the sense that, he's working in the shadows. He's the dark guy, but actually is working for the good guys. And the one thing, and granted, there's not a whole lot of things that I could say that I can make a decent argument to say, but the one thing that I see in a lot of Batman arcs is that he always has this rule that, I'm not going to kill anybody. And in a lot of movies that he's in, where he uses that statement that I'm going to stop other people from killing everything, because once you go down that road, you cannot come back. And him taking that unbreakable oath to protect Malfoy, whether or not I feel he deserves it or not, it became very clear to me that, yeah, he took it willingly because, he knows that Malfoy has to kill Dumbledore. He knows Dumbledore has to die because this is what's the overall plan and everything like that. And he knows that if Malfoy is the one to do it, he goes down this road where, as you said, his redeemable qualities can never come to fruition. So he takes it and he says, I will do it. Because I've taken this oath, I'm going to protect him, and that's the thing. I'm going to protect his soul. Because, as we saw earlier in the movie too, where when Tom Riddle was asking about Horcruxes, how do you split your soul? Murder. He's saving Malfoy. So that one particular characteristic of Batman I saw in Snape.
In the sense that he's carrying the burden for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's ironic that Mackenna has chosen this moment to pick up the Yoda figurine that's on my desk, because when you said that it was about carrying that burden, I said, not ready for the burden, were you? Yeah. So I will agree to a point about the Batman comparison in the sense that Batman carries the burden that the police can't, because his methods are questionable and, illegal. Vigilantism is inherently illegal. But from the standpoint of the double agent thing, I don't know that I can make that same comparison.
Well, he's the hero that we don't necessarily want, but it's definitely the one they need.
Is Severus Snape the hero that we need?
I would say he's not, because he is a double agent, and we really get to see how that plays out in this movie. But it does not go back. Like, just because he is doing these things for the greater good, it does not go back on the things that he has done in the past that were not so good.
I don't see Severus Snape doing this for the greater good. I don't think he is.
I'm not trying to say that he is. That's not.
Oh, but okay, that's what I thought you were trying to say.
No, I know. Like I said earlier, he's walking this gray line. J.K. Rowling herself even says that you can't place Snape as a saint or a demon. He is in this gray line. He is neither good nor evil. He is walking this gray line.
He's Batman.
He's the Grey Knight. But as far as like for the greater good and Snape's motivations, just as my interpretation, he's doing this because Voldemort took away someone that he loved, even though that love was unrequited and could never be the way he wanted it to be. His whole entire motivation is predicated on his lasting love for Lily Potter.
Lily Evans.
Yeah, that too. I just got the teenage correction too. The head, like Lily Evans.
I don't think he would love the married part.
But we've known her for 6 movies as Lily Potter, so.
But she is Lily Evans to Snape.
Okay, fair enough. You're grounded.
So my question is that, you made the statement that not necessarily the hero we need. Do you think then Voldemort could have been defeated without any of Snape's help?
No, I don't think he could have. I think that Snape had a significant role in the defeat of Voldemort.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the only person that could defeat Voldemort was Neville or Harry.
Because that's the thing, too. Because the other thing that I bring up when you say that, not the hero we needed, I mean, obviously you needed him in the position that he was in among the Death Eaters, because it was he who stopped Bellatrix from killing Harry. No, he belongs to the Dark Lord. It sounds like he's saving him for Voldemort, but actually I looked at it as like, no, he's saving Harry Potter's life.
He's doing both.
He's also following Dumbledore's plan, as is really revealed in the next movies. Mm-hmm. So I won't go into detail on that and wait for the next movies.
My thing is, too, what do you think the consequence to Bellatrix would have been if she had killed Harry Potter?
Well, in doing so, she would have... Bellatrix is actually portrayed as being in love with Voldemort. So she would actually unknowingly be hurting Voldemort by killing Harry.
Could she kill Harry, though?
Yes, because Harry, even though Harry is technically a Horcrux, as we've seen, other people can destroy these Horcruxes, but also as I'm thinking more about it, she may not have been able to, actually, because you need to have these special weapons to kill them.
And I think that's why Harry couldn't die, and actually it just occurred to me as we were having this conversation, because I never really thought about it before. Snape saved Harry because Harry was Lily's son, and because it was the will of Albus Dumbledore, and, that's his redemption for his actions, his penance, if you will, for being a Death Eater. But from the standpoint of, could she have killed him in the first place? It's an interesting question, and I don't know that there's a fan theory for that, or if that's ever been explored before. We're breaking new ground here. Could Bellatrix Lestrange have killed Harry Potter? Listeners, if you have an answer or a theory or want to run something by us, let us know by contacting us at the points of contact we'll provide at the end of the episode. I don't think that she could have, because he is a living Horcrux. The only reason that, and again, spoilers for the next movie, I'm sorry, the only reason that Neville was able to kill the snake, which was also a Horcrux, was because he had...
the Sword of Gryffindor.
Exactly, which is a heavily enchanted magical item.
Which has basilisk venom infused in it, and as we've seen, basilisk fangs can destroy Horcruxes.
Several times.
Yes.
But that being said, every time that Harry is in a position to be killed, as long as Snape is around, he always stops the person from doing it. So whether they could or couldn't is irrelevant. The key thing is he always reminds his evil brethren, the other Death Eaters, is that's the Dark Lord's kill. You don't get to take that one from him. He was the one that denied him his victory 17 years ago in this movie. So,
not the hero we deserved, but the hero we needed.
Yeah, he was heroic in the moment, but again, not in the sense that I think that Batman is compelled to be in the movie The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Returns. Why is he running, Dad? Oh, sorry.
So to kind of round things about, being directing this at you, Mackenna, being the uber fan of Harry Potter, what, if any, problems did you have with this movie? What issue did you say you watch this movie and you're like, oh, come on, you could have done that better, or armchair quarterback this?
From me being on the standpoint of also having read the books, I can see that character portrayal was a little more true to the books in this movie than in the past books. Like, Harry has a little bit more of a smart mouth like he does in the books, and Ginny is a lot more quick-witted and, like, fiery. In the books, she's just a little bit more than she is portrayed throughout the rest of the movies. But I can't really think of much that I would have changed about this movie without having to go back throughout the whole series and adding things in.
And putting point of note here for planting the seed for later development.
Yeah, because this series is so set up from the very beginning. It is, like, everything is all set up together and put together. Like, from the first book, everything is already written to the last sentence.
Right, but the last book didn't come out until right about the same time as this movie. In fact, from the limited research that I did do, there was a scene shot where Harry picks up Dumbledore's wand after Dumbledore falls, and they had to cut that and reshoot it because the last book came out.
Yes, but Rowling definitely had a plan for this whole story.
Oh, certainly. I don't disagree with you there, because, I mean, obviously she had to be writing the book along the way, but from the standpoint of that doesn't necessarily 100% communicate over to the filmmakers to say, oh, hey, don't do that.
Well, yeah, because they're not the ones creating this whole entire world.
Right. But had they made that, I guess we'll call it error, of letting Harry pick up Dumbledore's wand, then the next movie would have had to have had some way to correct that and had that wand end up where it needed to be.
Well, Harry still did end up picking up Dumbledore's wand when it was in his office.
Right, so they could put it in his burial chamber, in his tomb.
Even though they're not burying the wand with the correct owner.
She's critiquing the correctness. Like, he doesn't own the wand.
He does not.
But spoilers. Spoilers! But...
Spoiler.
Yeah. So, what would you change?
The one thing... Well, two small things. And they're pretty trivial. Like I said, I mean, these movies are pretty good. One from the beginning, when they first meet Slughorn. When they go into his house, it's pretty much a mess. And Slughorn gets revealed, and then he, does his thing, and the house gets cleaned up. And Harry seems very amazed by this. He's all looking, he's like, oh, look, everything's cleaning itself. And I'm like, man, you've been a wizard for the past, 6 years or something. You're still amazed by this stuff?
Well, he also grew up in a cupboard for 6, 7, 11 years of his life.
Yeah, well, then, yeah, it's like, then what, if they portrayed him just walking down the street and being amazed, then that would be understandable. But, it's like watching the little magic happen and he's like, ooh, I'm like, no, that's the face I would make the first time I saw that.
You did what?
I mean, he's definitely seen things be put back together like that, but on a much smaller scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, that, again, like I said, a trivial thing that, otherwise was like, I forgot. The other one, though, was a little bit more, and this is the thing, as I said, these movies, for the long haul, they really present themselves really well, and they don't spoon feed you a lot of stuff. However, the reveal as to who the Half-Blood Prince, when he came up and says, I'm the Half-Blood Prince, that felt like...
It was shoehorned in.
Yeah, it was just spoon-fed and everything, because, I mean, if he had just said, oh, using my own magic against me, and then left it at that, and then later on Harry was, looking at the book or something like that, and Hermione made the conclusion of, Snape's magic, that would have been a better reveal to me. That's just my opinion. To just come up and say, using my magic, I'm the Half-Blood Prince. That's just, like I said, it just felt like a spoon feeding to me. That's the only other problem I had with this movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. I have very few criticisms with this movie. I thought it was incredibly well put together. The director that directed this also directed the previous movie and directed the 2 movies after that. So it was good for the climax of the story to have consistency with the directorial choices so they can maintain their continuity. The characterizations, or the actors rather, the actors did a fantastic job. And I know we haven't really talked about it, and I'm going to hold off a little bit on Alan Rickman's Severus Snape, but I want to talk for a moment about Helena Bonham Carter's Bellatrix Lestrange. She is absolutely magical in that role, in a good way and not the bad way that she is. I mean, she inhabits the character and she has that mad gleam in her eyes, and I don't know how she captured that spirit, but it is phenomenal, and they did such a great job in this movie of showing that. And when she is tauntingly laughing and saying, I killed Sirius Black, and running through the field, that is so powerful as a moment in the movie when she didn't have to say much, but it was like she could have just said, I killed Sirius Black, but Harry would not have chased her out into the middle of the field had it not been in the taunting way that it was. I mean, it was her presence, and then he chased her, so he would have chased her, but he wouldn't have been as angry as he was and moved so rashly had she not continuously taunted him in the way that she did. And I've seen her in few other things, but every time I see her, I think Bellatrix Lestrange. And I'm like, when's the magic, gleamy mad woman gonna come out?
She definitely does do a fantastic job bringing to life the black insanity that is in her blood. I mean, she's a part of the Black family through the purebloods' messed up lineage.
Inbreeding.
She definitely does portray the black insanity very well.
Sorry. I had a Robin Williams moment. Dominant gene means hair is wild. But yeah, so I absolutely loved her. And the other thing, and this is in my notes because I really do want to spend some time on Alan Rickman, but Dumbledore. Richard Harris passed away in the middle of filming the series, and they replaced him. You could tell that it was a different actor.
The second movie, I believe.
And that's Albus Dumbledore. As much as I enjoyed the first 2 movies and that Albus Dumbledore, this actor is phenomenal. Again, it goes to the costuming department and the actor himself, and obviously, all of the people behind the scenes that help put that together. But if you can't act the part, then I'm not going to believe you. And I believed him in the same way that I think everyone in this movie did a fantastic job as their characters.
Oh, definitely. But because of that, they have all tried so hard to get away from that.
By doing other things.
Daniel Radcliffe on Broadway.
Rupert Grint hasn't really done anything that's super advertised or marketed. Emma Watson has gone on to do some things. She's very much the vocal activist. But again, the most diverse, well, I don't want to say the most diverse because there are others, but I think Alan Rickman, this being the movie that really kind of brings him front and center in the whole series. He's been the background, or not the background, but the torturous character for Harry Potter in the previous movies. In this movie, this is more about his development because he's in the title as the Half-Blood Prince. This is Alan Rickman's movie to shine in, and it's Alan Rickman. I mean,
Alan Rickman was basically built for this role.
He was genetically created in a lab for this role.
Yeah, where they create all the Marvel actors.
Everything special about him came out of a jar. And that's why he's the potions
Exactly,
guy.
and then becomes the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, but still.
Which was his true ambition.
But
His true
I think that nearly every moment that he's on screen is absolutely fascinating. He inhabits the tortured character of Severus Snape, the conflicted nature of I'm, as Mackenna said, stuck between these two worlds where I have to be the double agent. When he makes the unbreakable vow, it is not in the book that he paused. It was almost immediate, like, yep, doing this. In the movie, the pause and the machinations you could see in his head, like, how's this going to work for me? And again, knowing the way the story plays out, you can actually fill in the blanks about his motivation and go, okay, so if I do this, I have to do this. If this happens, I've already done this. I will do this thing because, and I think he and Dumbledore had already made the plan, if you will, that
Yes.
Dumbledore had to die. He already knew that. So as far as that goes, he was given the opportunity to save Draco Malfoy's soul, or at least a portion of it, by doing the deed himself. He was able to maintain the deception that he was still on the side of dark and further ingratiate himself to Voldemort by actually killing Dumbledore and still maintain his true motivations, which was his unending love for Lily Potter and desire to atone for his sins. And Alan Rickman showed that, I think, in his face, in his eyes, in his body language, his hairstyle choices. I know somebody does that for him, but I love this movie, and this is the series of movies that, just cement the brilliance that is Alan Rickman.
Nothing about that statement I disagree with.
Mackenna, how do you feel about Alan Rickman?
Yeah, I love him as Snape. Yeah, I agree with what you say, pretty much, yeah.
Have you seen him as Hans Gruber?
No.
We missed the Christmas movie. We suck. I'm a bad parent. Going back to your original statement, I suck as a father. Can't take my child to Harry Potter Mania Land and don't make her watch Die Hard.
You monster.
I'll have to fix that. But yeah, so, yeah. And actually that bit about the pause thing, that was in the, again, little bit of research that I did, because it has been a very long time since I've read the books. McKenna is actually on a reread right now. There was a smile and a nod. Again, the listeners that couldn't hear that, her brains rattled around in her noggin. But one of the things that I think about this movie is its fundamental questioning of the nature of good and evil. Because the only person in this movie that is, or that's referenced in this movie, that is truly evil is Voldemort. He wants what he wants for his own selfish reasons. There is no other motivation beyond that. He's not doing it to make the world a better place, and he benefits in the process. He just wants to be large and in charge. Everyone else's motivations are good, or if they're evil, they're in conflict, like the Draco Malfoy thing. He doesn't want to kill Dumbledore. He tries, but he doesn't really want to do it. He's doing it because he's been coerced and he's scared. Because his father is weak, his mother is weak, and from that, he has developed weakness himself. But you see him become stronger when he can't actually perform the deed. When he realizes that what he's doing is well and truly wrong and not justifiable in any way, and stops. Again, he gets a redemptive arc. So while what he's doing is, as you said, evil, it's conflicted. He's like the yin and yang. He's got a little nugget of good in there that just needs, a little seed is planted. It just needs to be nurtured and allow itself to grow. Where, Harry, who is inherently the hero of the story, actually uses the blood curse on Draco. He uses, I cannot recall the name of the...
Septum Sempra.
Thank you. Septum Sempra uses the spell on Draco, and that's a particularly nasty spell. And he does it because he's angry. He does it because he wants vengeance. So Harry has that little nugget of evil in him that they've explored in previous movies, but this is...
Well, he was supposed to be a Slytherin.
He was either a Slytherin or a Gryffindor, and that's why...
He was a Gryffindor because he asked to be in Gryffindor, representing the brave part of Gryffindors.
Because that was the characteristic that he wanted to...
Also, he didn't want to be in the same house as Draco Malfoy.
Be known for. Yes. Well, there you go then. But again, this movie does a great job of presenting the conflicts of good and evil as not a pure representation of each of those aspects. No one is 100% good. No one is 100% evil, except Voldemort. Agree or disagree? I see the look on your face.
I don't know. I don't know if you could say Slughorn was any bit of evil. He just was there. I don't think he did, I don't think there's anything evil about him.
No, I think he was generally a good dude. His ambition led him to seek status and to be surrounded by up-and-comers. He was, and I hate to make the political comparison, I apologize for this, but just watching the news and all that, he's kind of like the Michael Cohen of the magicking world. It's like, I just want to be with people that are strong and influential or that I think are going to be somebody at some point. He's a hanger-oner. That's his ambition. That's why he was a Slytherin.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily make him evil.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an evil trait. It's a weak trait, but weakness is not evil.
No, but that's my point. That's why I said he's not evil. He's just a dude. He's ambitious, but he wants to ride the coattails and be near strong and powerful people.
Yeah.
So that's my take on Slughorn. One of the differences from the book, the way he's described in the book is different than, the way he's portrayed on the screen. And I know we've discussed this before about changing characters from the book to the movie. Again, they told me such an entertaining story, and maybe, again, because it had been some time since I'd actually read the book, I didn't even notice. I neither noticed nor cared. Mackenna?
Yeah, I do know that they did change a bit of Slughorn's character, but the way that they did end up portraying him in the movies, I think it didn't really matter that they changed anything. It all ended up well.
Yep. It was good.
I like how you said, it's like it lasted a long time and you didn't even notice or anything. It's like kind of reminds me of Slughorn's Hourglass. I kind of like to say if the conversation is good, the sands slow down.
Yes.
But if the conversation sucks, they just, time's up.
How about that?
That kind of just lightly reminded me of a little item from, it was the second book of Hitchhiker's series, Restaurant at the End of the Universe, where he had and I looked it up, I had the name, the Jujanta 200 Superchromatic Peril Sensitive Sunglasses.
Oh, yeah. The more perilous it is, the darker they get.
Mm-hmm. Protects you from stuff that's going to hurt you, alarm you.
By blinding you.
Yeah.
But one of the other character development pieces, I guess, that not in the characterization, in the growth, emotional development or anything like that, but one of the things that you see in this movie that I don't recall seeing in the previous ones is Hermione's use of wandless charms. Mackenna brought that up to me while we were watching the movies.
Yeah, just, my question is just how powerful is Hermione, actually? Because wandless charms themselves are very hard to do. So, for Hermione, a 6th year, to be doing them already, it really shows how much magical power she actually has.
What is the nature of magic in the Harry Potter universe, though? Is it like the Force, where you are imbued with a strong ability, and I shall hate myself for saying this, but you have many midichlorians, or you have few midichlorians, or is it a knowledge base, I know how to practice and do the thing so that I can do it better?
Yeah, are you born into it or is it learned? I mean, are you Gandalf or are you Doctor Strange?
I think it's a little bit of both. It does go to say that sometimes purebloods, as much as I hate to emphasize the discrimination of them, sometimes they are better at certain spells. Purebloods are better at potions. It is portrayed throughout the books in the series that purebloods are better at potions than half-bloods or muggle-born wizards. But Hermione, it kind of goes for her character because Hermione is a muggle-born wizard, but she breaks through this barrier that muggle-born wizards aren't powerful to be really considered good wizards or witches. She powers through this barrier and gets to that point where she can do these wandless charms that take so much,
magical energies.
Yeah. They take so much, power to do. So, I feel like it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah, she studies a lot to get to this point.
Practice, practice, practice.
So my question here is that in this universe, to conduct any sort of magic, especially when they're doing combat, which is basically throwing a lot of energy balls around that do different things. But are they able to manipulate magic without a wand, or is that just they need that? They
are. You can do wandless spells.
Yeah, as evidenced by Hermione's wandless charms.
Well, what I'm saying is, they seem to put a lot of importance on a wand and everything, and every time you see them fight, they use the wands and everything. But say, a Jedi loses his lightsaber, then he just brings the walls down.
So my theory is that they can, but it's limited.
Yeah.
The wand allows them to focus the magic.
Yes.
So it's like Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
In a manner of speaking,
yeah.
Yes.
You're not Thor, god of hammers.
Because, speaking parcel tongue is still magic, but you don't need a wand to do it. And in the books, and I believe in the movie, Harry actually does magic in the Philosopher's Stone or the Sorcerer's Stone, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Where the window at the zoo to the snake habitat goes away, right?
Yeah.
And that's wandless magic.
And in the third year, he makes the lights flicker and everything, and things rattle because he is so mad at his Aunt Marge. And he even makes her blow up. So it is possible with a great amount of emotion and feeling, but I feel like the wands that they so heavily rely on are there to focus this and confine it into this thing that's not so heavily influenced by emotion.
Yeah, and to actually bring it back to this movie, when they stick their faces in the pensive, when they're pensive and thinking about things, which I love the way she names things. I really just wanted to say that. Diagon Alley. You mean diagonally? Yeah, that too.
And Voldemort, and the actual pronunciation Voldemort means flight of death in French.
Nice.
But in this movie specifically, Tom Riddle is in the orphanage, and he's already said, I can do strange things. Doesn't have a wand. So again, I'm more inclined to believe Mackenna's explanation about the emotional reaction, because in every instance where we've described something about magic happening without a wand, it has been because of an extreme emotional response, with the exception of Dumbledore casting whatever spell it was that revealed the stolen items in Tom's little locker at the orphanage or whatnot. But I'm sure that as the powerful wizard that he is, it wouldn't be too hard to channel his magical power in that direction in the same way that Hermione does with her wandless charms.
Yeah, because I just, when I thought about wizards in our fandoms, you want to consider Jedi wizards, but Jedi pretty much
space wizard.
And then Doctor Strange, obviously, those wizards didn't necessarily need a tool per se. But then, like I said, you got Gandalf, he needed a staff. Merlin, I don't know. Did Merlin was ever in any portrayal that, did he need an instrument, or was he just kind of just...
I don't think so. I don't recall.
No. Yeah, he was, and I know in the movie Excalibur from way back in 1981, his character was spoken charms.
Yeah. I don't recall if he's ever been specifically affiliated with any particular magic thing, except for the Sorcerer's Apprentice, that Nicolas Cage movie where it was a ring.
They can also do silent charms as well, or silent spells. For that, it's a manner of emotion as well as thoughts, and being able to channel that power without
saying the word.
Yeah, and without a wand as well.
Okay, so like how Jedis move things.
Yeah, kind of the same thing.
Because as far as I know, wizards can operate without their wands.
Oh, okay. Like I said, again, observation. When I watched the scene between Harry and Draco doing their little Call of Duty fight in the bathroom, and it's just like, and I'm like, I just wonder, it's like, if Doctor Strange showed up and says, I'm going to hit you with my wand, and he's just like, yoink, it's like, okay, what were you going to do now?
I'm sorry, what was that? Wand what?
This, you mean your stick? Click,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, broke that. My bad. It's amazing how easily wands break if they're supposed to be these focusers of magic. I guess it's about the core, so.
Yeah. But you can also go and buy another wand. It's not like there's only one wand set to you, and that's your only wand.
Oh, the wand chooses the wizard, Harry.
But as also, like, in this wizarding world that there is, the Harry Potter wizarding world, if a wizard disarms another wizard during a duel, the wand then becomes theirs.
But it doesn't have to like it.
But the wand will answer to them then.
Yes.
Because they disarmed them. So then, even though the wand has chosen its wizard in the beginning, its allegiance can change.
Yes, but one of the things that they actually say in the movies, and I think they say it in the next one. So again, spoilers. We're really going
not the next
to
movie,
that,
but the movie after that. Next story.
Right. In the Deathly Hallows, the wand that chooses the wizard works far better than the wizard that chooses the wand or acquires the wand.
Yeah.
So you're always going to be better off if your lightsaber crystal chooses you, as opposed to you going over and picking up a rock and making a lightsaber, if you want to follow the Star Wars analogy to its logical conclusion.
Conclusions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you could look at it this way, as like the Soul Stone chooses to be with you if you make the right sacrifice for it.
Right. If you're willing to sacrifice for it, which, that's a thing. So, Soul Stone. Woo! The interesting thing is not the Soul Stone, but the science, okay, so you said Soul Stone, it made me think, any sufficiently high level of technology is virtually indistinguishable from magic, and related the science to it. So magic is genetic, and it's a reinforced genetic structure, which is how you get Muggle-born wizards.
And squibs.
And squibs. Squibs!
Which you wouldn't know of if you have only watched the movies. Because squibs are...
Ouch.
Squibs are people who are born from magical parents, but possess no magical powers.
Yeah, they can't use the magic. They can't do the magic.
Which, Filch, the caretaker, is a squib.
Dude with the cats.
Yeah.
I found these students out in the hall! Yes, we know.
Out of bed.
Yes. So, the only other thing that I kind of wanted to bring up before, and I don't want to make this a super, super duper long episode, but one of the only questions that Mackenna and I had at the end of this movie was, where did Fox go?
Fox being Dumbledore's Phoenix, if you don't know his name.
Not Guy Fawkes.
That's a good question.
But the bird. He just flies off.
I cannot begin to answer that question.
Where did the fox go? Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
Nobody needed to do that.
Yeah, it's staying in. So, but I did have one question about how wizard school works, because in America and in most other countries, first world countries, we have an education system. You go to primary school, you go to some sort of middle educational school, and then you go to a secondary school, and then you choose to go to college or not. In the wizarding world, it appears that your 7th year of school is pretty optional. You don't have to do it. Ron's brothers dropped out of school. Harry didn't go to school. Hermione didn't go to school. Ron didn't go to school. Draco didn't. Well, no, I guess Draco did go back for his 7th year.
Fred and George graduated their 7th year. They were 2 years older than Ron.
When they were taking the owls, didn't they say goodbye Hogwarts and throw up all the flying dragon that chased Umbridge out of the room and stuff? They said,
yeah, because
here.
that was the year they graduated.
I thought that they were in their 6th year and they were done.
No, I'm pretty sure that was their 7th year.
Okay, listeners, if you know the answer to that question, because Mackenna's pretty sure, but that's not 100%. She's like 98.6% sure. Body temperature, but not not a fever. Yeah, I was under the impression that they dropped out of school, and there doesn't seem to be any sort of ever listed requirement to complete your 7th year. And the other thing that always has bugged me about all of Harry Potter is, how do these wizards exist in the world without understanding what muggles do? It's the muggles' world. There's way more of them than there are wizards. They have to go get food. They have cars. How do they not understand how this works?
I'm sure they once in a while would need a dentist. I mean, yeah, that scene, I didn't even think about that. That scene, yeah, my parents are dentists. Oh, yeah, what do they do? Is this a dangerous job?
Considered a dangerous profession?
But, so I actually thought about that when she said that, and I thought, well, why they should have dentists, but why would they need them? When Harry broke his arm, they cast a spell and repaired his arm. It took 3 hours. He was fine. They grew the bone back. I'm pretty sure they could do it with teeth too, so...
It took 24 hours.
Okay. My bad.
But still, you just gotta have an understanding of what that is.
But I would think they would have to understand how the muggles work, because they follow the same organizational structure. One of the things that's missing in this movie that was not in... Or rather, missing in the movie that was in the book was the Minister of Magic interfacing with the Prime Minister of England.
Well, they do have a Muggle Studies course at Hogwarts.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to be very effective.
Because it's not portrayed that well in the movies.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe I just need to go back and reread the books.
Wizards are so isolated because they are so fearful of Muggles finding out about their world and either trying to kill them because they are different, or
burn the witch,
or just using them for their magic.
Think of all the good they could do.
But at what cost?
I have seen some writing prompts on Reddit that, are expanded universe Harry Potter type stuff that say, you're a wizard that trained as a doctor and you use your magic-y powers to heal your patients and they never know. You tell them they have something light when they actually have cancer and then you just magic the cancer away.
Well, yeah, and even if they don't, they can still use Obliviate.
Yeah, exactly. So, those were my biggest questions. But, Mackenna, did you have anything to add sort of as a closing thought?
No, not really.
Overall thoughts on the movie? Like it, love it, hate it?
I love it. I love the whole series. And as I said, this is my second favorite movie in the series.
Okay. I would have to agree with that assessment. I think this is probably my second favorite in the series. I think that Goblet of Fire is my first.
Ha, the year of no haircuts.
The year of no haircuts. Well, there you go then. Dan, what are your thoughts and feelings? And then we'll find out where it goes on your shelf if you actually owned it.
No, like I said, it's a good series. I like long series or anything really allows you to get into the characters, gets emotionally involved. I think they did a really good job with continuity and the atmosphere and the depth. So if I were to own this set, there's some there are some worthy box sets, but I'm not ready to drop $600 for the Harry Potter. What was it called? The Harry Potter Wizards Collection. Which, oh man, if you looked at this on Amazon, it's $600.
Oh.
So, yeah. So for a graduation present, maybe, But it would go among the other groups of large collections, with Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, The Matrix, the Alien quadrilogy, all those box sets. It would go along with that.
Okay. Mackenna, where would you put this movie in our collection, aside from the fact that obviously they're alphabetical?
You knew what I was going to say.
Top shelf being the best, like fifth shelf, if you will. Let's say we had 5 shelves. Would you put it on the top shelf?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Ooh, color me shocked. I didn't need to use occlumency, whatever. I didn't need to read your mind to figure that one out. I would put this.
Yeah, you're not a legilimens.
Yeah, she knows all the cool stuff. I just watch the movies, nod my head, smile politely. I would put this at the back of the top shelf. I have a few other movies that I care for more than this, and again, keeping some space on the shelf. I think it is incredibly well made. I think that the tone of the movie is absolutely fantastic. Again, something that I hadn't thought of before. I do kind of now, moving forward, look at this as like the Empire Strikes Back of the entire series. And that being said, The Empire Strikes Back is one of the best movies in the Star Wars anthology. And because of that, or in support of putting it on the top shelf, it's incredibly well acted. The music is a part of the story in a way that you don't generally tend to get in, all of the movies that come out nowadays or, did in the last 10 years. And shockingly, this movie is 10 years old and I didn't really realize it. It's been that ingrained into the cultural zeitgeist that it's like, oh, it's Harry Potter. They came out like 2 weeks ago, right? It's definitely earned a place on the top shelf, in my opinion.
Also, recently, there's been a whole, revamp of, not exactly revamp, but, everybody, Harry Potter is coming back into what's popular now because of the, Fantastic Beasts spin-off movies. So.
There's a bit of a resurgence, then.
Yeah, that's the word.
Back in vogue.
Ooh, Vogue. Sorry. I'm sorry, I'm in a singy mood today.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay. So, let's find out what we're going to see.
It's 45.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you for reminding me. This is a listener selected. Listener pick. Yay! I love those. Those are my favorite. And here we go.
Deadpool.
Ooh, Deadpool.
Okay. Deadpool it is.
I don't remember who suggested that. I think that it was a friend of mine, Rich Boutot. I could be wrong, though. I'll have to go through the methods of contact for suggesting this, but we'll definitely fill that in on the next episode as to who requested this. And in the future, I'll just include that on the sheet so I know who asked for this. So with that, listeners, you can send us more listener requests at WRIOS2016mr@gmail.com. You can reach us on the Facebook page, you can reach us on the Twitter, or you can leave us a message at 804-699-1067. We would love to hear from you. And thank you for listening, and we will give Dan his opportunity to do a movie-themed goodbye.
Actually, I was going to refer this to Mackenna since this is her uber fandom.
Mackenna, how would you like to say goodbye? She's very quiet. She's going to defer back to you. Dan, your movie-themed goodbye is?
Oh, to be young and feel love's keen sting.
And Mackenna, you had a movie-themed goodbye?
We will always review movies on this podcast.
There we go. Cool. And with that, we will see you in 2 weeks with Deadpool.